All right, I think we'll go ahead and get started. Appreciate you being here today. What you've signed up for is a discussion of application and license management. We didn't put a lot of detail into the description of this because we were not real sure where we were headed with it when we first started, but essentially, we'll talk about the overview in a second, but we want to talk about some problems we've had at Pitt State in certain areas, and also kind of tie it together into kind of a whole holistic application management process that we're working on. It is still very much of a journey. We're not there yet, but we're started on it. We'll present some of what we've done so far. Okay. My name is David Nance. I'm the Director of IT Campus Services at Pitt State. So the help desk, tech support, technical training. I've been at Pitt State for about 20 years, was in the library for 16 before moving over to IT. And this is my colleague.
I'm Koester. I'm a senior tech specialist. This is my third year with Pitt State. Before that, I had over 20 years in K-12 help desk and support and doing network engineering and things like that.
Right. We do want to encourage you, if you have any questions or comments or input at all, please feel free to do so. We'd like to learn from you, hopefully as much as you learn from us. But with that, I think we'll go ahead and get started. So this is the overview of what we intend to talk about today. Our main emphasis, or the main starting point for this, was our Kansas Technology Center, generally referred to as KTC from here on out. That's our School of Technology. There are a variety of degree programs there, including construction management's a big one, engineering technology, including electronics, manufacturing, mechanical, plastic, auto tech, and so on. It's about 1,200 undergraduates, 300 graduates. That's about a fifth of our total enrollment. So it's a big part of our school. Over the last maybe 5 to 10 years, there has been a huge increase in the number of software titles that they've asked us to support. It has turned into a mess at times, to be perfectly honest, and we're trying to figure out ways to get past that and around it. So that's the main thing that we'll want to talk about or start talking about. Chase is, again, the senior tech, and he spends most of his time at KTC. And so he has a lot of experience, some bad, mostly bad, some good. And he'll talk about a lot of that. The other aspect of this is that our CIO anticipates, we went through the LPA audit process back in the fall. I think it went really well, but one of the things we expect to be an outgrowth of that, or something that they're going to be asking about in the future, is for software inventory, software control, some way of demonstrating what software titles are being used. And we don't have not up to this point had a very good way to do that. That's still, I put pending question mark there. That's not part of the process yet, but we think it might be at some point. So we'll also address that a little bit in this conversation. Oops, there we go. So with that, Chase will talk a little bit about some of the problems we've had that started us on the journey at the KTC.
I started 3 years ago as just a normal tech, and I've gone since then up to a senior tech. But at KTC, we have we have the 5 different colleges trying to all make decisions for the whole college, or the big group in college as one. And part of that problem is every ITS, or information technology, at Pitt State is centralized, and we cover all the buildings, but each department has their own purchasing for software and hardware. So that's definitely been
trying to start Zoom. I apologize. We didn't get the Zoom started
at all.
And I thought I could jump in and get it going, but I'm making a mess of it. So I killed. All right. Well, crap. Where is it?
It's on the screen.
Yeah, but it's not.
Is it behind them?
Yeah, I don't get why it's not.
There's a little video right there.
What am I doing wrong, everybody?
Well, it should be recording. You can maximize the video.
Yeah, I guess I just wasn't thinking to look at that video. All right, sorry, everyone.
No problem.
It seems to be recording, like you said. So
I don't know if their mics are on.
That mic's on.
Okay.
We got a lot of.
This one is on.
Just wasting it again.
I think we're good. We're not. There's nothing bad in the note. Yeah, top secret. We don't want you to.
Sorry about that, sorry to make more.
Oh, you're no problem at all.
So basically, the big problem when I first started out there is we have a lack of communication. Those departments, each department wants, or college, as they call them to the college, says, hey, I want this, I want this. And sadly, they've been conflicting lately, very much so. Another thing is when I took over, we found out that there was a Renegade server and Renegade network storage box on the network that nobody had maintained, and it was over 15 years old. And it had all the licenses and software, and some of it had, well, majority of it was expired, and other things were expiring, and they're like, why is our software not working? We've also ran into where professors just randomly would get other things, and prior techs before my time, and I don't know, if probably some before even David's time, it was like the Wild West. Do what you want, put it out there. We found multiple different, even like hidden Wi-Fi networks that they had put out on on the network, and now that we're centralizing it, and everybody, I mean, they used to have their own 2 techs out at that building all the time. And they're really fighting centralization of techs, that it could be me or 7 other different techs that could rotate through the building.
Yes.
And they just don't like that. They want one person that's dedicated to them, and you're at their beck and call 24/7. And that doesn't mean, that means even if it's after hours, they don't care. They want you there. And they're not afraid to call you or drive to your house. They've done that both.
Yeah, the decentralization of the software access, or software acquisition is what I meant to say, is a major problem. I've understood that some of you all may be moving to more centralized acquisition processes, but we're not there yet. It's whoever controls the money controls that, and things pop up on our campus that we don't even know are there unless there's some reason for it to be integrated into other things.
And then another, the big project that we started, I would say back in January, is we run AutoCAD on, and SolidWorks, and basically any app like that, SigmaSoft, MagnaSoft, Mastercam, all these high dollar, big programs that were designed to do industry and CNC machines, things like that. Well, the person that was in charge of our licensing and assigned to it was retired by 3 years when I first started. They were having him come in and try and help us with licensing, a retired professor. And they were having problems getting him certified each year with Autodesk, because they said, well, he's not an active professor, and we need an active professor to tie all your licenses to. So that was one big issue. And then another one that we've ran into that we're in fact working on right now is we have about 800 desktops in labs and with staff. And out of those, we found out that 450 of them starting next semester would not be able to physically run all the software they wanted because they had no life cycle management plan. They said, oh, well, we don't need to update. They kept putting it off and putting it off. And there's been 3 deans since I've been out there now. There's been a big leadership change, and we're got an intern dean now, but we found out that basically, when you have a video card that was discontinued in 2016, you can't run SolidWorks on it too well. And different things like that. And then other things we've run into, software expiring in the middle of a semester because one department pays for a license. And then, it expires in January. This one expires in February. Bluebeam is a program that we use for construction management. They love it over Adobe, even though we have Adobe and Acrobat. They love it because it works better with PDF supposedly, which is fine. We have 8 serial numbers depending upon which lab it is. And they're like, well, why do they all expire different times? And why is it hard to install? Can't you just deploy it? Well, no, it costs money. And then we've asked to extend one of our things we're trying to do is get our renewal dates all the same. We're trying to say, could you work with your vendors and say, can we prorate this date to match all these others so we don't have 8 different licenses to worry about?
The software was written for industry and they don't follow semester schedules with their licensing. So whenever you purchase it, that's where the license expires. And a simple, well, we're not to the solutions page yet, but we've learned that a simple call can get you a long ways towards getting those renewal problems straightened out. We'll talk about
And
that.
then like where it says version changes and requirements. The professors know, hey, we got a nice computer here, it's running my software now. They don't think ahead, well, this new version, needs more video RAM, or it might need more hardware, it might need more processor power than I have, or a big one we ran into is when they bought the original computers, they put, all of them have SSDs, but they put 256 gig SSDs in there. And the image they were wanting us to deploy for this last summer was 188 gigs in size with the applications and the OS. There's just no way to do that and have room for profiles and users and just let the computer function. And then there's others out there. There's computers the other day, we had to load some software to talk to a CNC router. They have floppy drives. We're dealing with floppy disk in today's lovely world, trying to update a machine. And another example would be in graphics, they inherited some of a printer from a local business. To update it to work with on our systems and network, you had to order an EEPROM chip from the manufacturer. It comes in, it looks like a 1980s computer chip. You sit there and there's 32 pins on it. You bend it, flip some dip switches, put it in, let it load, then flip switches and pull it out, and then it'll update. And you get a little printout that says it updated. Just in today's world, we're updating machines that are sometimes a little bit antiquated at times. And there's no path they've said to upgrade them. They're like, well, do you have $100,000 for us to buy a new one?
So we've identified a lot of problems, and some of these we've gotten resolved, some of them we still are, but let's talk about some of the solutions. Go ahead, Chase.
They had one main licenser, like I said, that had been running 15 years without people touching it really, except a random tech here might restart it. We replaced it, put it in a data center where it's scheduled for on-site and off-site backup. It's got dual redundant power. It's got air conditioning generator, limited access, and all our licenses are now moved to it. And we don't have to worry about a computer that freezes up, locks up, and is sitting in the corner on the desk in the maintenance shop where the old one was. So that helps that. And on the acquisition process, we've made sure that the departments know that they are responsible for their equipment, and we help them get quotes and, make sure that, this equipment won't last or might be coming due. But like the desktops, we just order 465 workstations for all the engineering software. And then we'll have another, I think they said 360 for staff computers coming up the next round. And that'll just be 2/3 of the computers out there.
And along with not just the purchasing, we're trying to get them to think more lifetime life cycle management, so that they don't just purchase them and then wait for them to keel over dead, but actually have a thought process involved with the replacement. It seems like such a simple and straightforward and obvious thing to do, but it just wasn't there. So it will be now.
And then just trying to get the vendors and the SolidWorks it's great to work with. They talk to us, their vendors, things, but by an Autodesk, the way we get it, academically, there is no support. There's nobody to contact and work with. It's just a site, you go do this, you got problems, you fill out a form and you may get a response, you may not. And we've ran into some big problems with that because prior techs said they renewed licenses and didn't, and we had the server quit in the middle of the semester, and all our Autodesk licenses we found out were over 2 years out of date.
We added one die right in the middle of the semester.
Not a good feeling, is it? No.
No, because then and then One of our it's great that we have what we're doing now, we're changing things. We got intern deans, but we have 3 deans covering our building instead of 1. So you have those plus 5 chairs, department chairs, and then all the professors on top of you going that, and then students, and you're like, we're doing our best. And they're like, well, but we need it tomorrow at 8 AM and it's 5 PM. You're like, we'll be here late, but there's no guarantee. And another thing we kind of decided to do is make out lockdown blackout dates. We get constant requests to, oh, could you install this? Oh, well, I decided, I went to this conference and they're using this, and could you install this type of server thing on a student computer and get the students admin rights in the middle of a semester? And they're like, then one was, they were wanting the Wireshark and some other things, which are fine, but they ended up wanting it so they could snoop the network. And they said, well, we want to cause problems and see if the network guys notice it. Or of course, our network team really didn't love that.
Gave them good practice though. Yeah, the lockdown blackout policy, we've not had one in the past. We haven't needed one really until KTC kind of got out of control. But we've tried to enforce that this semester, and it did not go well. We still have things that were supposed to be in our hands by April 1st that they haven't even touched yet. So, and of course, all the people on 9-month appointments have disappeared now. So, but we'll keep working on it. So, but that's something that we intend to continue to force. I don't know the rest of you whether you use those types of policies or not, but
I know another big project we're working on right now, and is one that was still a big one that we're having problems with, but we're working on it, is migrating licensing from that 3-year retired professor to another professor, and trying to work with Germany to migrate AutoCAD and Autodesk licensing. And they told us it's going to be a minimum of a month process once we get the professor to fill out all the paperwork and start it.
What is your lockdown blackout policy you're trying to enforce?
we were trying to get everything defined and in our hands by April the 1st.
All the software for the next semester, April 1st, we cut off to have, so we could test it and make images and then say, that way we're not throwing an update on that would crash one program that they want to put on computers is a bridge builder program in the construction science program. It was written by an MIT student, an MIT professor, nice little program. It's not designed for Windows 11. It makes the computers blue screen, everything we've done, and they want it on every machine up there, or almost 500. And they're like, we'll just deal with the machine's blue screen. No, we're gonna get phone calls, and then, why are they doing this? They didn't do this last semester on Windows 10. Well, we told you the program wasn't compatible. We were looking for an alternate solution and upgrade. And you said, no, we'll just keep what we had, just force it on there. Well, there's trade-offs on that. And
Yeah, there has to be time. There has to be sufficient time for us to test anything we install. It's one thing to install it, but if you don't know the implications of what you've installed and what possible negative impact there can be, and you have no time to recover from that, then it's definitely going to impact the educational process. And again, it seems like a fairly obvious statement, but it's not often seen. The communication that we mentioned here, I think that's probably, and you hear it all the time. I know it's kind of cliche, but just to communicate with them and hear what they have to say as well. Our end users, as a general rule, don't have a clue what it takes us to do our jobs. I think that's a very true statement, and we can get bent out of shape about that. We can let it cause problems, or we can try and do something to remedy that by getting them informed of, what it takes. How big is the image now? 100.
the image that we tried the other day with all the software before all the specialty stuff depending on the department is almost 200 gig in
Right.
size.
You don't put a 200 gig image down in a matter of minutes on 400 machines. You just cannot do it. And if they come in mid-August, it's not going to happen.
That part of the reason is they want to be able to have any class in any room out there, and they want every machine to be identical. Well, models are very similar. They're all the same machine. And then they're upset, well, they're upset because right now we've talked about, okay, all the graphics computers, you gave us this list. And we have a big spreadsheet that they've shared with everybody, both departments, chairs, us. They have what they want in each room. We're trying to follow that, even as of 5 minutes ago, I got an email saying, oh no, it's changed. And then one of the labs that they had construction classes in, they just now scheduled engineering technology classes in, and we gotta go change the image for that room. They want us to do it. But the summer school, and I haven't got to tell you this one yet.
Great.
They said they need the room till July 28th, and we gotta have the room ready the first week of August for classes for the fall semester. So
Good news.
how can you do that on a lab of 50
Yeah.
reliably and not
Yep.
have errors?
So anyway, I think you get the picture. There are a lot of cultural issues, probably a way to describe it as best of anything that we've just got to work through. I would like to think that the rest of you don't deal with these types of problems, but I suspect you do. So, yeah.
If it makes you feel any better, my department
Same.
has very similar.
Same thing. Well, okay, that doesn't make me feel better, but I appreciate you sharing it.
We've gone away.
Really? How are you doing it?
We don't plot an image on it.
Yeah.
We do windows that we install the apps after. If they're not able to be silently installed, we don't install.
Period.
No.
Don't even give them an
And
option.
there was one that absolutely insisted, so I had to make an auto edit script. Have you heard of everybody heard of auto edit?
Yeah.
I had to make an auto edit script to put in the keys and do everything, install it on the
And
web.
I tried doing that, but we ran into 4 apps that even the vendors that made the software said there's no way to silent install and do that. And then the professors say, well, it's your problem, not mine, and then they disappear on us.
And if there was something like that, I would just do it now.
We have that discussion every year. Are we gonna go with the big fat image with everything on it, or are we gonna go lean and install afterwards? And we have a lot of stuff that just is not scriptable. It's not, you can't do a silent install. It's gotta be touched. And so it makes more sense to roll it into an image, but
And then even the professors, well, you can make an image today and have it ready tomorrow, right?
yeah.
No, because if you want me to make sure, run and test and verify and, and if I just have a bad mood, I go use the restroom or go get a drink, come back and don't click the right button from when I come back, because I forgot something.
Yeah.
That's duplicated out on everything.
Yeah, I appreciate that input. Any other questions, comments so far?
What are you using for imaging?
We use MDT for Windows for operating system, and just actually found out just recently that MDT is essentially kind of deprecated now. We didn't really realize that, so we got some learning to do about
And then-
the other Microsoft processes.
Been using PDQ deploy to help push out apps and packages that way that we make were given to us by the vendors.
They work really well. We have decent processes, but again, it goes back to, do you roll everything into that image and make it humongous so that the other problem is, as Chase has already kind of talked about, is that we have a hard time pinning them down to loads for specific classrooms. And they will move a class on the spur of the moment for whatever reason, no air conditioning in this room. That's what. Anyway, so
Yeah, right now our building is 288,000 square feet and all 3 pumps for the air conditioner went out. So we have labs that are shutting down because the towers are just getting too hot.
yeah, so the point is that we can't depend on our install to be accurate, reliable, meet the needs, I guess is the word I'm looking for, reliably in every place. It can change on the spur of the moment. So that's another part of the lockdown, blackout, and the communication and the negotiation and getting this defined is it cannot be a spur of the moment thing anymore. So any other questions or comments about that?
Question.
Yeah.
If you find acquisition process, can you elaborate on that?
Acquisition, well, primarily what we mean by that is, as we've already said, we are very decentralized purchasing. whoever has a purchase authority can go out and buy whatever they darn well want, and we frequently won't even know what it is, and that's really, we need some input on that, or at least to be aware of that it's going on, and too often we do not. Every the 200 plus titles that we talk about at KTC, we've started going through them and found out that some number, we don't know exactly how many, nobody even knows who requested it, and nobody still uses it anymore, but it's still in our list because nobody thought to, finish the life cycle of that. So that's also part of the acquisition process. Okay, you need this. When do you no longer need it? If you don't use it anymore, please let us know so we don't have to include it in our imaging anymore.
And then we make sure to let departments know that, hey, we will help get any quotes for software wise, but we're not the main purchaser since it's decentralized purchasing. Each department is responsible, but they fail to come ask, or when they do, well, let's purchase it today and I need it tomorrow and it needs to be installed the day after. Yeah, sorry, we'll try our best. I mean, but just know, and we've had professors buy Surface tablets with an i3 processor wanting to run SolidWorks. And they're like, but I just spent $1,000 on this because it looked cool. Yeah, and you have to kind of politely tell them that it's a nice Word, Excel, PowerPoint device and my office, but there's no way you're gonna run SolidWorks. And they're like, well, but it'll run Autodesk. No. And then there are professors that we have that are very technical and have worked with us, and it's great. And there's other ones that don't know what a video card is, and you explain that it's what makes the pictures on the computer that after the CPU tells, and you try and get it into as layman terms as you can, and they just got the deer in the headlight look, so. And they're at the College of Technology, so sometimes it's kind of fun.
We promise to be nice.
I know, that there were no names, no departments.
No names were mentioned.
I do have a question about that. Are you all involved in kind of the terms and conditions and contract management piece of that? So you all are kind of that. Do you all get involved in anything accessibility, security review? Is that being done centrally at this location?
Jeff, you want to touch that one?
I think it is for certain products, but if somebody goes, anything that requires a contract of any kind goes through legal, it goes through, there's certain steps. But if it's just a off-the-shelf piece of software that somebody can go out and purchase on their own, then probably none of that review goes on.
Yeah. If they've got purchase authority, they can go out and buy it, and there's no way for us to stop them at this point.
Yeah, and I don't think purchasing has any gates for that type
The
of
only thing he
purchase.
said, told me was if it's over $5,000, they have to review it. For that,
Right.
the departments are free and clear to do what they.
Anything that has an agreement that is signed by someone, that definitely goes through the full review process.
So they make sure that 146A is included, it needs to be.
Right, and and purchasing kind of includes a lot of the Kansas verbiage that's required for general purchasing, software stuff, all of the things that are tacked on for technology as well. But yeah, the off the shelf stuff it's wild.
Not a lot of control at this point. So Jeff is our lead developer, heads our development crew. So thank you.
So I know something that we're, at least in my department, trying to mitigate a lot of these problems with, especially with with software, because software is a nightmare.
Yes, it is.
I took over our department and there was a lot of weird software that wasn't properly documented or anything like that. So what I've been doing is trying to mitigate a lot of these issues. Is that when a renewal comes up or something like that, instead of going directly to the department, I'm trying to go through our ITS instead. So that way we have a centralized document on what we have,
Yeah.
trying to put everything on modern license servers. And in terms of hardware, we don't allow any of our professors or anything to order hardware without going through ITS for approval. So that way we can catch stuff like, oh, we're trying to buy $1,000 Surface Pro to run SolidWorks on. it doesn't have it doesn't have a GPU on it.
Yeah.
So clearly that's not gonna run through environments very well, so we'll catch that before it comes through.
We have pretty decent control on hardware as long as it's larger purchases, but the odd surface that somebody has a P card that they can go out and buy,
Mhm.
you know, it still happens.
So
So,
unfortunately, I can't control P cards.
Yeah.
Pretty much anything else that goes through us has to have approval.
yeah,
now.
absolutely.
And we're working on that management document, so we
And
can
then,
get everything
what we
centralized.
run into too out in our building is even the departments don't know when their software expires. It was on the server and they said, well, if it quits, then we'll know.
Yeah, I've been running into that issue as well. I took over my department about 2 years ago and there was a lot of lingering software that either people don't know who licensed it or it's a perpetual license that nobody knows about, or even some of the worst case scenarios, you have to go to every single computer to put in the serial number and then email yourself to activate it.
Yep.
And then I know I've been told I've gone above and beyond a little bit at times and I've had to take steps back because just the separation of how we do it with purchasing and our IT is not centralized. And I've dealt a lot with vendors. I've even called Switzerland. I've talked to people in Austria and Bulgaria in the middle of the day. Yeah, it gets to be fun.
Oh, definitely.
Thanks. That's probably a good segue into the next part of this is the software inventory, because we are trying to build a little bit more robust software inventory in our environment that's all kind of ties into what you said about just knowing what's there and what's not and having it available. A lot of good reasons for this, but not the least of which is just avoiding redundancies, avoiding duplicate costs and things of that nature, much less the nice idea of having, you know, security review process or something on the software that's acquired and brought into our environment. At any rate, as I mentioned, this is an outgrowth of the LPA process and believe that, excuse me, our CEO does expect that this will become part of what's required of us in the future years is a more robust software inventory. Right now, we do a pretty decent job with installed software, things that you can see in the registry or in the installed applications using our PDQ inventory and also our JAM for Macs. But there's a whole lot that doesn't show up in that, mostly software as a service. And that right now we're using just self-reporting as our only option. And that's not even really set up yet. But our expected end result is we use as our service management platform Team Dynamics, which I think is kind of common to a lot of you. We have not up to this point used the assets and configuration information module in it, but we are going to start that and start trying to pull that data in from PDQ inventory and JAMP and start building a centralized inventory that will also include software tiles. We're kind of started on that. Some initial imports. We're essentially just using reporting, scheduled reporting from both of those products to create CSV files and then using the Team Dynamics asset import utility to pull those in to Team Dynamics. I'm sure there'll be a lot of changing and massaging of that process as time goes on, as we learn exactly what we really need to have available, but we are working on that. Our future plans. There's a lot of information that's not in the inventory, as we said, purchase details, date, price, license, expiration, both for hardware and software. We're working on the hardware, and that's not what we're going to talk about, but just extra. We're working with the vendors to try and get that in some kind of a importable format so that we can have that as part of our inventory processes, because it did come up in the LPA audit of being able to determine age, vintage of machines and that type of thing. But for software as well, we need to find a way to identify all of that initial purchase price, date, license. And again, right now, manual is the only option. Ownership is important because we need to know who to blame for anything that's in our environment, but to put a negative spin on it. But that's that, other future plan, and I'll throw this out, not because I know much of anything about it. It's just very initial research, on this. So we haven't even tried any of these, but there are processes that will automate, discovery of software as a service titles and inventory those for you. They use a variety of, discovery mechanisms. I listed Xylo and Tori here. There are bunches of others, and you take it for what it's worth, because I don't really know them that well. This is again in the research stage. But they will allow you to do SSO integration so that first I really didn't understand why that would matter, because if you've had the software title integrated in your SSO, you should really know about it, right? But things come in, and in the midst of time, they get forgotten. And there's a good way to keep a summary of all your software titles through through SSO integration. Another one that I do think is kind of interesting is there are web extensions that will allow you to run as a browser plugin and monitor the traffic and look for software as a service being purchased and installed. There's probably a lot of implications behind that from the standpoint of monitoring web traffic, but it certainly would work and find some of those things. Others are desktop client like extensions or applications that would monitor that type of traffic. And also another one that would be interesting would be DNS examination, look through your DNS logs and see what is being accessed and monitor those titles from that standpoint. Yeah.
Couldn't you, through purchasing, most of them SaaS stuff gets paid by credit card?
Yep. Monitor the
Yeah,
financials. Yeah.
That would almost be easier.
It would. That is a good one. And that may come down to that. As a matter of fact, it may be our only choice, but something needs to be done besides just self-reporting, because we know whether actively evading the system or just forgetting, or it's going to be hard to have 100% participation on something like that. And I think that's it. Any questions, comments, anything we can answer?
Talk about my capital policy.
Yeah.
That you guys can share.
Share as in the details of it? Yeah. If I can remember it, yes. It basically boils down to, we have calendar dates set, at which point we have to have defined what they need for the following semester. So it's either April 1st for fall, or I think we set, it was a little later for the spring semester. So it was in October, November, somewhere around there. And
Late October.
was that what it is? Okay. We figured there would be fewer changes between fall and spring than there would be spring to fall.
That's specifically the classroom labs.
Yes. Yeah. Well, yeah, anything that they need us to configure for them. If it's a something that is a faculty staff machine, yeah, I mean, we still have to configure for them, so we need to know about it. But particularly the ones that are mass configuration. So that's the key part of it. We're also trying to ratchet down on the no changes at a certain date, usually a week or two around the start of each semester. This is all defined, and I'm only being told because I can't remember the exact policy. So, but and we just developed this policy this semester, so it will change. Hopefully the cooperation with the policy will change, because it was not good this semester. But anything new takes time for people to kind of wrap their heads around. But we've had some chaotic semesters at KTC, and Chase isn't old, but I am, and we don't want to go through that anymore. And they've got to get to the point where they're going to work with us and make it a little less chaotic for the future. Any other questions, comments? We're at time.
Have you looked at a Express key server for tracking your software?
I've not heard of that one. Is that
It's probably the the biggest application that's dedicated to specifically license management, and looking at systems.
Does it
I don't
do,
think they uses it.
does
but-
it do discovery or anything, or is it, again, you have to put it in there for it to be monitored?
So it's a client base, so you put clients on your machines, but it can actually track down to DLL execution on the system.
Okay,
Then you have also the ability to then scope out, like, you can set a policy to say you only want like six copies of Notepad to run. In there, so you can build out a lot of stuff, but it gives you tons and tons of details about the applications that are being used, even SaaS applications. How often they're being used, when they're being used, who they're being used by. And there is a TDX connector, then you can just directly pull all that stuff into Team Dynamics. It really gives you a really good insight in what's being used on campus, who's using it, how often, to at least give you some data behind whether or not an application should be there.
we'll have to give that some thought. We met before our session today. He's the TDX guy at K-State, so if you have questions, that's gotta be.
I think I call all site now.
Also, we'll have to give that some thought. Anyway, appreciate you being here and enjoy the rest of the conference.